Hello, and welcome to Conquering Finale. My name is Jason Lafredo, and today we are mastering the Measure tool. We're going to look at some of the behavior options in the Measure Attributes window. So let's just go ahead in there and see what we're dealing with. We're looking at the bottom right portion of this window where it says Behavior, and there's several options here, and I'm going to kind of walk through them for you and kind of explain the significance of everything. So the first one we have here is begin a new staff system. And actually this might make more sense if I do it here on bar 4. So I'm just going to check the option for begin a new staff system. And you'll see that what happens is that measure 4 gets put on the second system here. Now, depending on how you have systems locked and everything, some interesting things will happen. First of all, I had originally had this first system locked with 4 bars and then every other system locked with 4 bars. The locks will remain past this point, but you'll see that actually there are no more locks on systems 1 and 2 here. And it's sort of behaves similarly to the lock. So you can see that there's a little icon on the left here now that looks like a little bent arrow indicating that this measure right here is set to always show on the begin a new staff system like this. However, the difference between this and locking the measures is that when you start adding measures, Finale will still reflow the measures accordingly, and it's just that every time you get to a certain spot, this measure will always have to begin the new staff system. So let me explain this a little better by demonstrating. If I insert measure stacks here before measure 2, for example, let's put in, 12 measures. You'll see that now all these are still unlocked, the first, second, and third system now, and you'll see that Finale is flowing this according to how much space it needs for all these empty measures and everything. So it's got 10 on the top, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the second system here, and then this one single measure on the third system because this fourth system is locked. However, if this bar didn't have this begin new staff system behavior on it, most likely this bar would end up on the second system. In fact, if I go in here and undo this, begin a new staff system, you'll see that it will actually jump up to the second system. So essentially what that's doing is it's allowing you to choose which bars begin a new staff system without having to go through the process of locking everything, which can have its advantages. For example, now I've just undid everything and I've got everything locked again. You see 4 bars per system here. If I were to go in here and insert 12 measures again, because everything's locked, it behaves differently and it tries to squeeze all of those measures onto this first system. Now, there are occasions to make sure that things are locked in this manner. There might be other occasions to use the begin new staff system feature instead from the measure attributes window. But just be aware that you have the option to do this, and it behaves a little bit differently. I guess the way to look at it is that locking the system is much more stronger of a process than using this behavior, but this behavior will give you some flexibility in allowing Finale to keep flowing measures before this particular bar. So that's what that's all about, the begin a new staff system option. Now, right below that, there is an option for show full staff and group names. So you might not even be aware that this option exists, and it's really a good thing for when you have multiple movements in a piece. And interestingly, when you check this, it will also check to begin a new staff system for you as well, because this option really only makes sense if that measure 4 in this case, is actually at the beginning of a new system, because you would never show full or abbreviated staff names in the middle of a system. So checking this option sort of by necessity also checks this option, right? And we click OK. And again, the same behavior happens with the begin a new staff system option. The difference now is that at the beginning of the second system, you can see that I've got the full staff names versus the abbreviated names. Actually, I can go in here and uncheck this option, leaving begin a new staff system still checked here, and you'll see these go back to their abbreviated names, right? So that's what that option does. It's really a good tool for if you have multiple movements in a piece. Interestingly, you can actually check this option and then uncheck begin a new staff system, and nothing will happen. Because again, this bar 4 is not at the beginning of a system. But now this measure is set to have this behavior that if it were to appear at the beginning of a system, if I just move that down, you will see the full staff names on the left side here. If I move it back up, then you don't see the full staff size. It's because measure 5 doesn't have that option checked, only measure 4. All right, so that's the show full staff and group names and the beginning new staff system options here. Below that, we have the break a multi-measure rest option, and this is sort of self-explanatory and a little bit more useful. Oops, if I go into a part. So now I'm looking at my soprano part here, and you can see I have the first 8 measures are empty. Now, even though these measures are locked, when you combine multi-measure rests, Finale will actually put these on one system. So multi-measure rest create, and you'll see that I'll get one system of 8 here. Now, if I wanted to force Finale to do 2 systems of 4, the best way to do that is to select the measure tool and choose the last measure of the first portion of that multi-measure rest. So in this case, bar 4, and we go into the measure attributes, and we select break a multi-measure rest. Now, again, I'm only setting this option for measure 4, so it's only going to apply to measure 4, or the end of measure 4. So now when I go in here, and even if I do this all at once, choose multi-measure rest create, you'll see that Finale will respect that that system breakdown that I have, 4 bars of system, and allow 2 different 4-bar multi-measure rests. Right, so that is the break multi-measure rest option. The next one below that has to do with word extensions. Now, let's see over here. I've got a word with a long word extension here. And if I go into here and do break a smart word extension on bar 12, which is the last bar of this system, you'll see that the word extension will go up until the dotted half note in bar 12 and then stop. So again, that break word extension is doing that for me. Interestingly, if I do this on bar 11, which is where the original word is, and I click OK, oops, go in here, break a smart word extension, there we go. You'll see that the word extension doesn't get drawn at all. So this may be useful sometimes if you're doing some unique things with lyrics where you've got, a word that is here, but then you want some like interesting vowel thing. You want an alternate vowel on this bar, and then an alternate vowel on this bar, an alternate vowel on this bar. So, you can get some interesting things by just choosing the break a smart word extensions option here. Of course, you can always delete smart word extensions individually, and it's sort of kind of critical to know that, I guess, that when you do it here in the measure attributes, it will break it all the way up and down the score. So if you need to do this on an individual basis, this might not be the way to go. But if you need to do it on a full score basis, then this is definitely the way to go. So that's the break smart word extension option. Now, interestingly, with both the break a multi-measure rest and the break smart word extensions options here, these options will get checked for you by default when you choose either the double bar line, the final bar line, or the solid bar line. The normal, the dash, the invisible, the tick, and any custom bar lines that you select will not by default select these options. So it's kind of important to know that this exists. And actually for me, I've always found this slightly problematic because the double bar line, yes, it should definitely break a multi-measure rest, but I don't think it necessarily needs to break a smart word extension. In fact, more often than not, I would prefer that the double bar line not break a smart word extension. So this happens to me all the time where I have lyrics that extend through the end of one section to the beginning of another section where I'm using a double bar, and I do this and the word extension gets chopped off, which is not what I want. So it's something I'm constantly doing, going in here, unchecking this breaking smart word extension to get that word extension to continue past the double bar. Maybe there's a key change here or a time signature change or something. Anyway, it's for me, it's a little problematic that this is chosen for you automatically. I can see it being checked, for the final bar line. I don't know why you wouldn't want to break a smart word extension at a final bar line. Maybe yes or no on a solid bar line. I don't use solid bar lines all that often, but for the double bar line, I really wish this did not get checked automatically. And unfortunately, there is no place in Finale that you can change this behavior. There's no setting anywhere. There's no document option or program option that will, disallow the double bar line selection from choosing the break smart word extensions option. So, it is what it is. But just be aware that whenever you do a double bar, that smart word extension will get broken. All right, and just a couple more things to look at. Actually, just one more thing, right? Well, two more things. The allow horizontal split points thing I'm going to talk about in the next video because this is a little bit complicated and there's a bunch of stuff going on here. So I'm going to ignore that. And the last one we're going to talk about is the include in measure numbering. Now this will actually, literally tell Finale that we want this particular measure to be included in the measure number region calculation. So, in this case I have a measure number region that's just spans everything. So it's 1 to 9,999. So literally every measure gets calculated in sequence. But if I go into the measure attributes and deselect this for bar 4, what you'll see is that there will be no measure number in bar 4 now, and then the 5th bar will be bar 4, right? So this is actually one way to sort of skip over the measure numbering. And it is important to realize, however, let me just see if I have this set up. Yeah, you'll see in the measure number ribbon up here, you'll see that it actually skips that number as well. So it goes 1, 2, 3, skip 4. However, if you set this to, let's see if I can find this real quick. View, we want to display actual measure numbers here instead of the defined measure numbers. What you'll see is that this is still considered the 4th bar as far as Finale is concerned. So there will be a little bit of an offset. The bar 4 is nothing, bar 5 is bar 4, 6 is 5, etc. So, when you start getting into the calculations for the measure number regions, you do have to take this into consideration if you actually have this option unchecked for some reason on a particular measure, including measuring numbering. Now, this is really useful for doing things like split measures, which you may need to do if you have a mid-measure repeat or a mid-measure key change or something unique like that. And actually, part of the next video I'm going to talk about the horizontal split points and split measures in general. And there's sort of two different ways to do it. And in one of the ways, having this option unchecked is sort of necessary. Otherwise, you'll count the same measure twice, which wouldn't really work for you. So anyway, so that is pretty much all of the behavior options in the measure attributes window. It's it's fairly simple, but the critical thing is actually kind of knowing what's in there. I find a lot of questions on the forums are very easily solved if you sort of know exactly what these options are. In fact, I just saw one recently about breaking multi-measure rests, and so many people had different ideas for it, and I'm like, guys, there's just a break a multi-measure rest in the measure attributes. It's really easy to do it that way. So you just kind of have to know that it's there, and that's part of the challenge of Finale sometimes. So anyway, that's all. Thanks for watching. As I mentioned, the next video is going to be about splitting measures in one of two different ways, and I'll show you both of those in the next video. So once again, thanks for watching, and I will see you soon on the next video.